This is going to be one of the more difficult videos that I will record due to the fact of being vulnerable and open about my own experience in relationships. But most importantly, I feel it is important to talk about due to the fact that I know a lot of people have gone through or are going through abandonment or loss or rejection with relationships. And these wounds can hit us so deep. And I want to talk about how to navigate these deeper hurts within ourselves. This is difficult for me to talk about because I am naturally a private person. I am not exactly sure how to effectively communicate this topic due to my own level of comfortability and privacy within my life and within my own experiences, but I will share some of my experiences and of course speak as open as possible to try and help guide you through matters of the heart. And relationships are our greatest teachers, as painful as they can be. And my videos, you will notice, don't really talk about relationships because I have been through my pain. I have been through incredible abandonment and loss, especially over the last 4 or 5 years. I've had to work through this myself. And I feel that now, truthfully, I am in a very comfortable place to talk about it. But again, I think it's just my personal boundaries or my personal level of comfortability that is sort of shying me away from talking about this particular subject. Again, I do feel it is important to talk about. I feel it's very important to open up dialogue around this so that we can make sense of it, so that we can overcome it and not allow it to take over our lives, which it can. Going into the relationship realm is very sensitive. So again, I am going to do my best to speak from the heart. I know how sensitive it is. I know how difficult it is. I know how painful it is. And you are not alone with how you feel. This is one of the more sensitive areas within ourselves because our hearts are very tender and we can feel very removed from our true self, from who we are when we get shook emotionally, when someone comes in and activates a deep wound within ourselves. So I will first highlight an experience that I have gone through firsthand, and then I will also do my best to give you some guidance or some support for what you might be experiencing regarding matters of the heart. And mostly I'm going to be talking about abandonment, for example, loss, maybe rejection, maybe even ghosting in this particular video. Although I have gone through some other things, I may speak to them at a different time, but I feel this one is important because I feel it happens a lot. And of course, when I speak on this, it is from my heart. It is a non-biased, non-emotional place. I hope to open new perspectives for yourselves out there who are experiencing this, and especially to look at maybe areas within yourself through a new lens, or to prompt deeper exploration within self so that you can heal, so that you can move through this in the best way and the healthiest way possible. Because as I mentioned, these can be very deep wounds. They can trigger deep beliefs and deep wounds and experiences that we have that are actually not the relationship itself, but go deeper than that. And this is my experience. So those relationships that show up in your life that cause the chaos and the upheaval within yourself, the emotional uncertainty, those relationships are going to be your greatest teachers. And those relationships are going to offer you the most powerful time for healing and transformation, and to find yourself, to really align with who you truly are. Now, I firmly believe, and this is from my experience only, but I'm open to listen to opinions, listen to your own stories as well. Of course, I encourage you to share your own stories and your perceptions as always. From my experience, especially dealing with abandonment, which had occurred about 4 to 5 years ago, which left me completely unearthed. I was completely taken offside of what happened, blindsided by this particular occurrence. And the situation never became healed from a conversation or from an apology. It was just completely left open. It was an open, gaping wound that I had to heal on my own, which I am truthfully thankful for. At the time, I was not thankful for. I had a lot of hatred and animosity and resentment and bitterness. Also, at that time, I was going through a very, very, very low point in my life. It was probably the lowest I had ever been in. maybe one of them anyway, because I've been through many, but it definitely was a low point in my life. And this relationship came in right at that time and took me to a whole new level that I had never experienced, and truthfully was probably the tipping point into my dark night of the soul. It was almost a cataclysmic event of everything happening all at once. The worst of the worst that I could possibly imagine just poured into my life, and it was very overwhelming, and I found myself consumed by my emotions and by what was happening in a way that I couldn't even make sense of what was going on. It was so beyond my level of understanding. What it had done to me changed my life. It also allowed me to find myself and to become more empowered and more centered within myself, because I had lost myself in relationships many times over and over again. And I had continually put myself in relationships that were not in alignment with who I was, but I didn't know. And at that time of meeting people or being in relationships, I would fall into relationships for maybe one reason or the other, but not for the alignment with my whole self, because I didn't know who I was. I hadn't worked on myself to find myself wholly and fully. And because of that, I was attracting certain relationships in my life that matched my shadow, that matched my unresolved false beliefs, that matched my unresolved wounds within myself. But again, I didn't know this. I was moving through life unconsciously and unaware of my behaviors, my limitations, my fears, etc. And so when this one relationship came in, it really, really shocked me. It shocked my system. It shocked my body. It shocked my emotions. It shocked and rocked everything within myself. It basically, I would say, dismantled and blew everything up so that I could rebuild myself from the inside out. It is, I would say, probably the most challenging experience anyone can go through. And if you are going through it, I completely understand how difficult it is. But know that these situations will offer you the most powerful time to rebuild and reconnect with who you really are. What is really important for you? What do you value within your heart? And finding the strength within. Finding the strength within yourself to strengthen the relationship with yourself first, right? And when we are in relationships, we can lose ourselves in relationships. We can give a lot in relationships. We can completely remove ourselves from our true self in relationships. We can operate unconsciously in relationships. We can attract relationships or create relationships based on false beliefs within ourselves, right? Based on fear, based on maybe superficiality or other circumstances that we may create in our lives based on unconscious mechanisms within ourselves. So when we become rocked within ourselves, when we become fragmented and triggered, if you will, then that is the perfect time to do this work, to set time aside and move through the motions of self-discovery, healing the heart, becoming more whole and forgiving and letting go, right? So this is going to also tie into the video that I recorded just before the full moon in Scorpio, where I talked about the emotions and how entangled we can be from an emotional standpoint, where we can lose ourselves in relationships. When we're in a relationship, if someone leaves us, it is important for us to maintain our sense of self. Even, yes, if there is sadness and grief, of course, that is a beautiful human emotion that we all can share, but not to the point where we are losing ourselves in that relationship or in that story. And that losing ourselves and the anger or the sadness or the grief comes from somewhere deeper within ourselves. It comes from a story from the past, a situation from the past that we have not resolved. And what happens in the past, from childhood, for example, we don't necessarily know how to process these emotions at that time in our life. So we carry them through and they form beliefs within ourselves. Maybe I'm not lovable. Maybe I'll never find someone who will support me, or maybe relationships hurt, or maybe relationships leave me, or those ones who I love will leave or abandon me or disappear. And so those unresolved the beliefs or emotions within ourselves can become very strong when we encounter relationships in our lives. And I'm only giving a couple examples because I know there are many examples out there that exist, but I'm only speaking from this one experience because I know this one is also very common or very prevalent and can be very impactful when we start to shine light on it, when we start to see it for the truth that it is. And also too, when we're going through the motions of healing from past relationships, it's important to give yourself time and be gentle and not hard on yourself and not give up on yourself or on the process, or not give up on the fact that there is future love on the horizon at some point when you are ready. This is an opportunity where you can find yourself again, where you can reconnect with who you really are from your heart and from your soul, rather than the constructs of false beliefs and false programming and false experiences that you've gone through. And by that, I mean the fear, the worry, the abandonment, the rejection, the beliefs of I'm not worthy, maybe I can't succeed in life, in a relationship, or in life in general, however it resonates. Maybe relationships are bad or they are painful. Maybe I'm unworthy or unlovable. I'm speaking to very generic beliefs, but they run very deep and they are going to be very personalized to your own experience. But what happens when these relationships come in and activate the depths of ourselves, these are our biggest lessons. They are the biggest opportunities for growth and for healing. And for myself, it took literally 4 years to work out of my last big experience that I never thought I would recover from. The anger would come in and overtake my levels of consciousness. It would overtake my body and behaviors. My thoughts would come in. They'd be very vengeful. There'd be anger. At first there was sadness, but then it morphed into anger and revenge and spite. It just naturally took a long time for it to cycle out because this was deep. But my greatest value was to redirect my focus and my attention from that one person towards many different layers within myself and many different aspects within myself, to do the deep dive and to find out what is really happening within myself. It's not this one person. This one person has been the trigger, has been almost the impetus to take me into the depths, has been that breaking point for me. But there's something deeper under the surface that I needed to look at, that was prompting me to look within and to give it its attention. And I kept going into it and exploring it, even when I would find myself in a memory, in a conversation, in a thought, in a feeling. I would have to stop and not give my energy and attention to it anymore and see where it's coming from truly, what is really under the surface. It's not that one person, it's something deeper. And it takes a long time to explore. It takes a while to venture into the depths of where that root cause is truly coming from. And when you see it, and when you connect the dots of the story or the patterns or the beliefs or the emotions, then you begin the process of unraveling from that person or from that relationship or from those emotions. And I'm telling you, from the future, you will. If you are doing the conscious work on yourself pertaining to this particular occurrence, then you will absolutely change yourself in a very profound way. And you will create greater strength within yourself and greater alignment within. When we lose our emotions to a person, when we lose ourselves within a person or within a story, then we are basically detaching from our wholeness, from the alignment within. When we go through this, it's an opportunity to bring ourselves back into our center, to find ourselves wholly and fully within, and to create the connection within ourselves that no matter what happens, we will still maintain the wholeness within ourselves, rather than giving ourselves away to certain situations emotionally, mentally, physically, etc., energetically as well. And so this is an exercise of bringing ourselves back and healing those beliefs within ourselves, those deeper unresolved wounds from past, long ago. And so we can strengthen ourselves and bring in a relationship that's going to be a match to our new self, to our whole self. So abandonment was huge for me. I had abandonment wounds that I could identify that happened within this lifetime, but also it took me even further than that. And it took a long time to forgive. It took a long time to heal and let go of the ego and let go of the stories that kept coming up and the resentment and the animosity, and to move beyond that, to move beyond it, and to arrive at a place of more wholeness and completion within. And now I can talk about it. Before, probably even a few months ago, definitely a year ago, I would not be able to talk about it without some kind of emotional connection to it. And I know we may not like to hear the word time. You are an infinite being. Time is limitless. We have the confinements of time in our modern society that places a lot of pressure on where we should be in our life, that we're running out of time. We regret what happens in the past. We regret that maybe I shouldn't have met that person. Maybe I shouldn't have invested so much time. That doesn't exist. Everything has happened perfectly, and you will see it more when you transition into your whole self, because all of those experiences that you've gone through are all adding up to something greater if you are working towards it, and if you are looking at those experiences from a different perspective. We are not running out of time. Some of the exercises I would recommend as a regular practice is, of course, self-awareness, paying attention to how much you are giving into the emotions, especially. So in a previous video that I uploaded, I referenced earlier, before the full moon in Scorpio, I was talking about the emotions. So we can find ourselves very entangled and enmeshed in the emotions and in the stories. And our emotions become very addictive. These stories become very addictive, especially if we're used to replaying them or reliving them within ourselves. We are very habitual creatures. So the more that we live in a story, a belief, a thought, an emotion, the more familiar we are with it, and it becomes very habitual. It becomes part of us. We then become very enmeshed within that story, within those emotions, and within that experience. And we create a very solid connection that is very hard to break away from. Some of it definitely needs time in order to find its way out, but by being conscious and aware of the emotional entanglement, we can start to remove ourselves from those emotions, those stories, and it does require conscious effort to not feed into the stories, to not feed into the memories, and not to give a lot of your energy to it. It's okay to give your energy, and do not feel bad if you are finding yourself replaying some of the memories or going into your emotions. It is a simple exercise of being conscious, strengthening self-awareness towards your emotions and towards these sensations and feelings and stories, and creating separation from them. So lessening the connection with them and separating yourself more and more from it. The other one is going to be finding the source, trying to find the source of where this emotion is coming from, not the person, not the relationship. Is going to come from somewhere deeper. It has a connection to a deeper story and a deeper belief within yourself. The next, of course, being gentle with yourself, not putting pressure on time, allowing yourself to naturally find your way through this. In order to get out of the situation is by going through it and feeling it and sensing it, going through the motions and addressing it head on, feeling those emotions, understanding where they're coming from, making sense, contemplating, journaling, reflecting, meditating. Very important. Of course, self-care, being kind with yourself. This is a time to rebuild yourself. This is a time to find love within yourself. This is a time to strengthen your heart within yourself, for yourself. Reconnecting and building that relationship with your body, with your mind, with your emotions, with your self, with your whole self. And then, of course, forgiveness. Working on forgiveness, meditations, forgiving within your heart, and letting go. Letting go can be difficult, especially if there is abandonment, fear of rejection. Letting go can be really hard to do. But letting go is going to create greater empowerment within yourself, for yourself, not from a place of ego, but from a place of authenticity, from a place of unconditional love. I also do have a cord cutting meditation on this channel that you can go to. I will leave a link below or here. So I do hope this offers a bit more guidance as you move through these motions. Remember, give yourself the time that's required. Be in the emotions, feel it, and understand what it is teaching you and what this opportunity is providing for you. It can feel very dark. It can feel very lonely. It can feel very confusing. That is completely normal, and that is part of the process. But the whole point of understanding our false beliefs, our emotions, is so that we can create a greater relationship with ourselves and see ourselves more. See parts of ourselves that we have overlooked, or seeing parts of ourselves that those people are trying to show within ourselves by activating some of those deeper pains within. So I hope this video offered some guidance on your path forward. Of course, I would love to hear where you're at. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out at any time. I'm sending much love your way for your journey and beyond, and take care.